For the past few weeks, we've been talking about injustice and how we all just wish somebody somewhere would do something. And when I think about all of the injustice in the world, or even just all the injustice we've been talking about here at church, I feel like the I don't know emoji. What do I do? What can I do? What is actually something that I can do that can make a difference when it comes to injustice? Just to make sure we're all on the same page, let's define that word, injustice. When you hear people talk about injustice, it simply means something that's not right, fair, or is unequal. So that means justice is just the opposite of that. So when we're talking about injustice, we're talking about all the things in our world that aren't fair and they're just not right. People getting bullied at school, that's an injustice. Victims of human trafficking, families that live in poverty, schools that have to move online during a pandemic, but students don't have the tools or resources or internet access that they need to keep up with classes. These are all injustices, and of course the list could go on. When you think about it this way, chances are you can see plenty of areas of injustice in your world. And if you're honest, that probably makes you think something like, wow, that's a lot of terrible things happening. Somebody should really do something about all of this. And so far, we all agree that we all get that. There's a need for more somebodies to do something. Check. But I want you to pay attention to what I say next, and it's literally the point of the series. And it could be a phrase that passes right through your mind, having no effect, or it could change the course of your life. Here we go, are you ready? You are that somebody who can do something. It may feel overwhelming, like our little actions won't have any effect on such great giant problems, but small changes are still that. They're changes, and they're changes in the right direction. Now, some of you get this because you've been doing something about injustice for a long time. You've been speaking up for people, showing up, helping, posting, and working. And because of that, here's what you know for sure. It's exhausting. Doing something means you have to have conversations over and over again. It means that you don't show up on time. You don't just check a box and move on. You show up over and over again. It may feel like it's not working. You may feel like you're fighting a losing battle, that every little thing you're doing just isn't worth it. You're probably feeling discouraged at times and wondering if this battle can even be won. If that's you, I want you to hear from some people who met Jesus and hung out with him and were his followers. And they were people that fought injustice. Check out what they had to say. Don't get weary when you're doing good, Paul said. In other words, don't give up. Don't give in when the good work gets hard. Instead, just keep going, keep working, keep fighting. Standing up and doing something about injustice isn't easy. It's overwhelming. It's something that feels like somebody bigger or stronger or older or more powerful should be doing. It feels like something somebody needs to do something about, right? Well, remember what we said. You are that someone. Now, we're gonna look at some words from a guy named James. What's interesting about James is that he was actually the brother of Jesus. James went on to write a letter to a group of Christians who were facing severe injustice, and he challenged them by saying this. When you put it that way, it sounds pretty heartless. But you know what? If we're honest, I think that's what we're all tempted to do sometimes. When faced with hugeness of a problem that we just don't know how to solve, we often just settle for saying or posting something and doing nothing. This, by the way, isn't a teenager thing. It's a human thing. Every adult feels the temptation to hold back when it comes to injustice. And don't get me wrong here, thinking about it is a good thing. Praying is powerful, posting is important, all of that is good. But if our doing something stops there, we've missed some of what it means to follow Jesus. You see, following someone means you do the kind of thing that they would do. And Jesus, well, he always does something about injustice. Maybe you've heard about how he spoke up for the poor, cared for the sick, hung out with people who were outcasts, and confronted leaders who were treating people unfairly. Did Jesus offer his words? Absolutely. But he also offered his actions. He lived in a way that showed the world that people matter. Look at what Jesus went on to say right here. So James was saying that our faith and our actions are connected. When it came to injustice, Jesus was always doing something. Always. And when we make that shift to allow our prayers and our words to turn into action, we're becoming more like the person we're praying to. We're becoming more like Jesus. When it comes to injustice, never stop doing something. The same can be true for each of us. So when it comes to injustice, never stop doing something. It may feel impossible, but little by little, you can change the world. And how? You might wonder how. Like James said, do something. And like Paul said, keep doing something. So here are ways to keep doing something about injustice. The first thing you can do is use your voice. Speak up. Say something in the moment. Say something on social media. Say something to a teacher or an adult who can help you. Use your voice. You have to speak up and speak out for those who need your help. The second thing you can do is use your influence. Maybe you're someone who people listen to in your friend group. Use that influence that you have to talk about injustice with them. Ask how you can use your opportunities to help someone else get more opportunity. Another thing is use your talent. You don't have to give up on basketball, theater, Spanish class, or whatever your hobby is, but you can use the talent that God gave you for others. Maybe you use your art to do something about injustice you see in your school. Maybe you use your influence on your team to speak up or to serve others. Maybe you can use your ability at school to tutor kids who need help and can't afford a tutor. You need to ask God to show you what you can do to help others. And if you don't know what your talent is, please ask a landing leader, because I know that they'll know what you're good at. And another thing is, use your life. We're not talking about just one service project or signing up to volunteer a few times. Injustice is everywhere. And part of following Jesus is making a commitment to do something and to continue to do something. It's making a lifelong commitment to be in the work. Of course, that means that you may have to take care of yourself in the process. You may need to find some people who can encourage you and can remind you that what you're doing is worth it, even when it doesn't feel like it. Maybe before this series, you never thought of God as a caring person for injustice. But for some of us, the idea has even changed for the way that we think about God altogether. If that's you, then just know that we're here to help guide you through that. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. But before those conversations, pause with me for just 1 minute. Today, as we're wrapping up this series, I want you to imagine, what if church actually did this? Not just our church, but the church, us, the people, the entire community of people who follow Jesus. How might the people in your school or your neighborhood see God differently if Christians were known for choosing to see people the way that God sees them and treat them the way that He would? It's fascinating to think about, right? Here's what's crazy. That can happen, but only if we stand together and do something.